I probably say this as I open every one of these episodes, but I am so freaking excited for this conversation because this is one that is Bill Hart, you have had a bigger impact on me than most people I've met in my life, and have had a bigger impact on most of on so many people, specifically in this industry, but also, all over. Just in what you've done in the lives of others, you have impacted so many lives and the lives of those they impact. And so getting you here, especially with all the experience we've had together, is really exciting for me. And I'm just pumped to see where this goes. So Bill Hart, I would say Bill Hart, my coach. And actually, I'm going to say that still Bill Hart, my coach. Like we don't officially coach together anymore because you are in a new, journey in life. But back then, I brought you on to coach me and it was just outstanding. And you helped me see who I really am and did a lot more work than just help me be more successful at business. You helped me be a better human. So there's your intro, dude. How's that for an intro?
Maybe best ever. I'm going to go with best ever. And if I could record that and play that every time I start a Zoom call or get up on stage, that would be fantastic. But buddy, it's my honor to hang out with you. I love you, as you know, and it's fun to just be able to spend some time in this particular venue, in this vehicle. And I'm fired up to be here with you today, man. So let's fire this up. Let's go.
Dude, well, so what listeners need to know is some of the people I'm interviewing for this podcast just keep referencing Bill Hart. And like when Bill was coaching me and others that didn't reference Bill Hart reference coaching. So you've been coaching for how many years in this industry?
20 years, which we figure translates to 20,000 hours. And it's been a lot in this industry, man. I just been hanging around a long time. If you've got the gray hair, it brings a perceived wisdom and an increased dollar amount. So it's a great thing to charge for gray hair. I'm just saying.
My gray hair is all in my beard, so when I grow it out, you can tell my age, and when I shave it, you can't tell as much.
Nice.
But, yeah, it's been awesome to see your coaching career. Now you're a leader in coaching leaders at one specific company, but in your time coaching, you've dealt with people or helped people along through, everything from business to personal, right? You don't really limit yourself to, I can remember coaching with you one day and it was one of our weekly coachings. And I said, can we put business aside and talk about parenting for a bit? And that was still one of my my favorite calls we've ever had because of the way you handled it. You've handled like everything.
It's, the way that I was taught to coach by Daniel Harkavy at Building Champions was it's life and it's all connected. And, when I grew up in the 50s and 60s, you might remember some of those television shows, like Make Room for Daddy or whatever, where, dad came home in a suit and a briefcase and he set it down and mom's there with the apron and, hi, honey, you're home. And like, there used to be very clear lines for people. And these days they're largely blurred. But then there are also people that, and this, probably some of the people you've interviewed or will interview will tell you about how they create their boundaries so that they can turn it on and turn it off. But yeah, that's the reason that, life and business in the way that I've been, involved as a coach in people's lives have just always been interconnected. It's really hard to just, in my opinion, in the way that I know how to do things, to coach somebody just in business and not touch life. And, your wife is the one that knows how to deal with life issues. So I'm not trained that way. I just have a lot of miles on the odometer, and that's what I bring.
Yeah. One of the things that you brought to me in one of our first sessions, I'll never forget. We met and you said something to the effect of, I don't think you know who you are. And it was that I was like, just fortunate to be in a room full of people. I didn't understand the impact I had on people's lives. I didn't understand, I had this imposter syndrome. And you said that. And then the more you introduced me to really high level, folks through the Master's Coach program and those, you started showing me that we all have a little bit of that. And you started showing me that this is a consistent thing in high producing or high, functioning people, is that we're going to wonder if we're good enough. How limiting is that? And like, is this as big and widespread as I think it is?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it's not ubiquitous. I wouldn't say it's everywhere. And by the way, that might be the first time you've heard that word today. So
It
there's
is.
that. Yeah. I'm going to just throw in bifurcation too, because that one doesn't come up a lot, but it's such a good word. Yeah, man, so it's not hugely prevalent, but what I find is it either comes up very quickly, as it did with you, or it just takes a while for layers to get pulled away, and then there's a moment of transparency where the client is comfortable talking about that. And sometimes, Ken, I just got to call it out. I mean, that's one of the things so if you're watching or listening to this right now and you're a coach or you coach part-time or something, I would encourage you that once you've built trust, and that's the critical disclaimer, you got to build trust. So I'm hopeful that you and I had already trust when I brought that up. But I think one of the most effective things that you can do as a coach is to step into that area of discomfort that most people aren't prepared to do, because we just kind of stay at a very superficial topical layer. But as an example, I just had a client recently that I told him that he talked too much. Wasn't super comfortable, but I think he immediately knew it, right? I think he immediately knew that, yeah, I think I do that because I want to fill silence with wisdom. And I said, yeah, exactly. Like, stop doing that. So anyway, whether it's, imposter syndrome or talking too much or whatever it might be, if you're a coach, and a lot of people that listen to this, are probably in the coach's seat, either as like a player coach or full-time coach, man, that would be a strong encouragement. Or just a leader, even if you're not formally a coach. If you're a leader and you've built trust with people, I think it's okay to venture into the uncomfortable, which is Ken, what you did all through COVID. You did it because you were experiencing it firsthand, but what because you were hearing it so many times, is you were voicing what so many people were feeling. That pain needed to be addressed, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. By the way, I just finished a project you asked me to do. You asked me to go back through all of my Facebook posts from 2020 and 2021 and go see the Ken of those times. And it was, man, it's fascinating. I'm still processing it. I'm still, going through it. But that was you calling out, like wanting me to see, former me and how far I'd come, which is really part of the genesis of this podcast is, looking at the ways that we have struggled before, the things that we implemented to get through those struggles, and then using those things now, which is, you can't, there's so much value in going back, but in a positive way, and going back and not just to judge myself, because I could do that as well, but more to go, okay, look at what I thought at the time. And now I'm at this point where it's hard to see sometimes through a lot of the day-to-day struggles of the business, and being able to go back and go, oh yeah, like there's times that all I see is walls. Like I don't see, the way over. I want to know, and we're going to split this two ways here with this interview. One is we're going to talk about you as a coach, and then we'll get into you as Bill Hart, because those are two separate things. And so you as a coach, when the industry, when you were coaching through the first crisis back in 06, 07, 08, you had top producing people, leaders. I mean, some of the best leaders to this day, right? Some of the best leaders in this industry were being coached by you back then. They were strong and powerful and crushing life and doing great, at least financially. I don't know how life was, but financially they were killing it, right? 06, you're coaching in 06, you're coaching in 07, you're coaching in 08. Talk to me about the mentality of these people you were coaching, when they realized, oh, it's not going to be as easy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so full disclosure, in 08, so I started coaching in 03. So in 08, I had the only way that I could stay in the coach's seat was to supplement my income. And I supplemented my income with voiceovers. Call 1-800-555-1212. That's 1-800-555-1212. Right. And I was doing a lot of voiceovers and stuff because in LA, it's just, you're surrounded by studios. And I was like scab talent, right? I was non-union voice guy. And it was the way that I stayed in the coach's seat. So full disclosure, sometimes the side hustle is legit. The clients, it was really interesting, Ken, because you develop a relationship with people, and when income just drops off the edge of the earth, there was some uncomfortable conversations. Just like, Coach, I love you, but I just can't do this anymore. I got to hand in the keys to the Mercedes lease, and I got to cancel my gym membership, and we're going to have to let the rental go. And so there was a lot of just immediate contraction because it was so dramatic and it was so quick, right? It was very strange. The contrast between that and COVID is people in the mortgage industry were killing it, right? Because rates were so low and refis were just blowing up, while restaurant owners, small business owners are putting up closed signs and stepping away. And so that was weird. There was some weird survivor's guilt that I saw going on in the mortgage industry that, Mindy would speak to, but it was a weird time. But in '08, you quickly saw, just as we're seeing now, quite honestly, the same thing. I've been quoting this number, and thank God you have data because you can help me to support it. But Ryan Serhant was recently quoted, and I just don't know if it's accurate, and I don't know how you even look at the two numbers together, but he said 600,000 realtors and lenders will be gone by the third quarter of this year. And I don't know, man. I don't know, what the number is. What I do know is, and this number because it was somebody, was it Housing Wire or was it what's the other company that looks at mergers and acquisitions, and Stratmore? It might have been Stratmore that said, Garth, I think, said 40%, right, of LOs have already left. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, the hard part is getting those numbers, but yeah, that sounds accurate.
So with that stuff going on, you very quickly see, and we saw it in '08 too, there are people that get attracted to this business in the mortgage industry in particular. So let's just talk to, that group, which is our audience primarily. I mean, I hate to, it sounds so diminishing when I say this, but there are people that are order takers, right? When rates are low and the phone is ringing, it's like, sweet, this is great, man, easy money. And all of a sudden, when the market shifts to, oh, okay, not only do I have to pursue purchase business because refi business isn't there, now suddenly I need to figure out how to source that. And one of the things that I heard, I don't know what you've heard in terms of feedback from Dave Savage and Todd Buxman's event, along with Renee Rodriguez in Vegas, but the Modern Mortgage Summit, people doing 200, 300, 400, 500 plus units per year last year, 2022. That's incredible volume in 2022. We're all saying to a person, I'm working twice as hard for half as much money.
Yep.
I mean, I think I'm not a math guy, but I think that's 4 times then, if that's right. If I'm working twice as hard for half as much money. And that's what we were seeing in '08, man. So the survivors were those that were like, dude, this is my business. I mean, I'm all in, and we're going to do what it takes to make it work. What I'm seeing, if I was going to contrast '08 to now, the social is so much more refined. Social media is so much more refined right now. And so, as an example, Denise Donahue said, the mortgage nerd, those of you that don't know, the beautiful blonde with the horn rim glasses with no lenses in them.
No way.
She said, oh yeah. I mean, there might be glass, but they're not
I didn't know
prescriptions.
that.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, no, it's her brand, man. And it's brilliant
awesome.
because she geeks out on the numbers, right? That's where she's coming from.
Right.
She was a
Right.
financial planner before she got into mortgage lending. I don't know if you knew that, but she just geeks out on the numbers, and that's where the mortgage nerd came from. And she was talking about the fact that she markets to 6,000 realtors right now. Like, if I could do a wowzer, effect on this, like, holy cow, man, 6,000, right? I was coaching people for years that were marketing to 50 or 100 or 6,000 she markets to. And she no longer looks at the boundaries of the DFW market either. It's like people see my stuff in Florida. They don't care. Who cares anymore where you are? This whole local lender thing that used to be such a big thing. I'm offending somebody right now that's their like tagline. But it just, I mean, come on, it doesn't matter. Where do people buy cars from? They're not buying them from their local car lots as much as they used to anyway. It's like you find the car you want, get it shipped. Like, it doesn't matter. So anyway, that's what I'm seeing, Ken. In '08, there was huge fallout. People doubled down on their realtor partners, on their database, making calls. What's different this time is I'm just hearing more people talking about, I have to blow out my sphere. I got to, if I was marketing to a 10-mile radius, now I'm marketing to a 100-mile radius. If I was marketing to 100 realtors, now I'm marketing to 6,000. If I was doing, one post a week, I'm now doing 5, and I'm educating, and there's just more. So the encouraging thing, you and I are wired similarly. So the good news I see from this is when rates drop again, and I'll let you speak to that in your opinion, but I'm just telling people, look, let's assume nothing happens this year. Nothing dramatic happens this year. Next year it will, because it's a presidential election, right? So we know we're going to see lower rates at some point, and you're going to be in a better position because of what you did. So that's kind of the good news from all of this. So I feel like I probably traveled all around a tangential answer.
I want to dial in on something that you said there, because I've seen a lot of people talk about, like, you just got to get up and got to do these things, and here's how you do it, and double down on your effort and stuff like that. And I agree with all of it. For some people, they're watching it, and we've seen this with some companies where company leaders, they watch and they don't act, and they kind of see it coming, and they're like, I know this sucks.
Totally.
And I think I should do some things. Is there a moment, like, do people need to come to the moment without hitting rock bottom where they go, I need to act right now? Like, How do you get to that moment faster and get out of this freeze mentality that so many people are in of, like, I don't know what to do, but I just hope it gets better and hope it's not a strategy?
Yeah. So here's what I picture. Do you remember I don't remember what it was called, but that horrible shooting in Las Vegas? And right. And just think of any video you've ever seen of an emergency moment like that. And there's the vast majority of people just run screaming. And then if you look carefully, there's always people, there's always people that, like, are looking for a different exit, or they're going to hide behind a pillar, or they're going to go a different direction. It's human mentality. And I think we have to fight that herd mentality and just say, make a freaking decision. One of the things that we learned from the military, I didn't serve in the military, but I'm a huge fan, as you know. And one of the things that they talk about in the military is look around, make a decision, right? Prioritize and execute, because it's happening hot and heavy right now. If you're in a firefight, you can't be going, I feel like there's something that I should do here, but I'm not really sure what it is. Okay, this isn't working out. I've got to actually, like, go do something, right? So yeah, I to me, it's like default : action. Default action. That's where we have to be right now. I see it with the leadership at my company. I see it with the leaders that are making strong moves right now, that in hindsight, we're going to look back and say, well, okay, that one was a win, that one was a mistake, but you made a decision. I'm saying when the bullets start flying in a shooting, you don't want to be, I call it the orangutan position, right? Where it's like, I don't know, like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. You've got to be definitive and make a run at it right now. Default action.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I'm now going through the shooting we witnessed in downtown Portland when we were having lunch, and Mindy and I were minding our own business, and I started noticing things weren't good, and there was some things that I looked at that I'm like, something's wrong. And then the scream came, and then somebody starts yelling, he's got a gun, and we hear 4 shots go off. But by the time those shots go off, we're already running in flip-flops in the summer in downtown Portland. And it's so funny the way you describe that, because I ran straight in the line of fire away from where the shooting was, which bullets were ended up in the gutter. The shells were right near where we were sitting. I run directly away from the shooting, and my wife just turns the corner. And talk about handling something, better, because I turn around and she's not behind me. And I was like, where's Mindy? Like, freak out moment for me. And I ran right back into it, like, save my wife, which is good, because she often thinks that, if a mouse is there, I'm going to put her in front of me. So she always wonders, like, will I go back and save her in these times? So I ran back to find her. And she followed me back in. I'm like, come with me. And like, we ran away from it, still in the line. And we jumped behind a van, and behind the van, I'm like, where were you? Like, I was freaking out. And she's like, I ran where they couldn't shoot me. And I was like, you're so much smarter than why did you follow me when I called you? You should have been like, follow me. But you're right. The panic of that moment caused,
oh my goodness,
my brain left. It was just like, run, like, save yourself.
Right.
And it's an extreme comparison, but I think it's a good comparison to, that really has been the reaction of a lot of people, is like, freak out mode. What are we going to do? We don't have a lot of strategy to it. Just do something. What you're saying is stop, assess the situation, do something right. You may look back and go, I could have done it differently, but at least you made a move in the right direction. Is that kind of where you're going?
That's exactly where I'm going. Yeah. And to take it even a step further, not that you could train for that, but I think, let's talk about these crazy situations, because sadly they're coming up more and more often in their conversations that I'm having with my kids and grandkids about situational awareness.
Yeah.
So I just got a pair of, which I know you already have, the AirPro Max or AirPod
Maxes. They're so good.
Right. But have you seen what's happening on the streets in New York?
No.
People are coming along and ripping them off people's heads and stealing them. Now, how is that possible, right? We've got a $500 ticket item,
right?
And it's happening because people are walking down the street completely unplugged, even though there's a feature, right, where you can
really good one. Yeah,
the masking feature, right? The noise canceling. But they're oblivious. And so if you talk to people in the military, they'll tell you, yeah, bad idea. Like, you need to be able to hear, you need to have some awareness. There's somebody in that shooting, probably that you guys were in, who had on noise canceling headphones, listening to whatever music, and they were oblivious until they saw people moving. So number one, let me take you way back to some ancient wisdom. One of the Stoics, a Greek philosopher named Archelaus, Archie, as I like to call him, said, we don't fall to the level of our expectations. Sorry, we don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training.
So good.
We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. So I believe one of the things that as a coach that I need to convey to clients is, we need to be thinking about a few proven things right now. Like here's an example. If you're in the mortgage industry, how many people are in your database? So if I ask an audience of 100 LOs, Ken, I will get, it's always weird because the first person to risk a number is like, is it too small? Is it, but you're going to hear 200-300, right? And then you're going to hear somebody who says 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. And I'm telling you, man, that's game changing. Like, if there was one thing that I could look at as a key determiner, like, this is blood flow, for my business, that's it. Because if you have 2,000 people in your database, here's what I know. If you stay in touch with them and they like and trust you, a percentage of them, life events are going to feed you. Life events, births, marriages, divorces, move up, move down, right? Transfers in, transfers out, downsizing, upsizing. Like, those people that I've coached with a large database, they don't care what happens in the market. I mean, they care, but it's like they're largely unaffected because it just happens. Dan Keller recently said, a neighbor of yours, Dan Keller recently said, we have to manufacture business right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's right.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be having conversations with boomers right now that are sitting on 2 7/8 in their house, that used to move every 5 to 7 years, and now it's 10 years plus. We need to have conversations with them about, well, hang on, like let's just talk about your dream situation. What do you want to do? What if you hung on to this as a rental? There's a possibility, right? Just keep it. But we can show you how to get into something different. Or maybe it's time to do a reverse. Or maybe it's time to consider that, well, yeah, you're going to have, 6 7/8 right now, but you're going to refi next year. Like, who cares? So we have to manufacture business. And I think sometimes training is something that is ironic because it's your business.
I love that you're saying this right now.
Right? Well,
Yeah.
training is something that has fallen by the wayside in the mortgage industry, Ken, because they didn't have to do it.
Mhm.
My phone was ringing. I just need to be able to quote a rate. And if you didn't like it, there's 5 more behind you. Like, it's okay. No worries. So I would strongly recommend that everybody that's listening to us right now or watching us focus on training. What are the areas that you need to strengthen your system and your business with? Number 2, I would build your database and start doing it like immediately and start doing it today. And here's a super easy way to do it. I tell people this all the time, and I can always see them on a call when they start doing this. It's like, right? So here's all it is. It's just a new habit. It's a new discipline. If every single day, as you move and groove through your day, and you're having a conversation with a waiter, with a business owner, with somebody you're sitting next to at a soccer game, whatever it is, it's going to turn to, so what do you do? And you say, actually, I'm in the mortgage industry, which always begs the question, tell me about your real estate story right now, and then shut up.
Mm.
And they're going to tell you, wow, yeah, we put in 6 different offers, man, and we just keep losing them, and we just don't think we can do it right now. This is not our time. We're just going to have to rent for a while. You say, interesting. Yeah, very common, man. Totally get that. Hey, do me a favor. What is the best way to send you? I've got a great article. I think you'd really, and you don't have a great article, by the way. You have to go find it, right?
Or write it.
But you hold your phone up and you say, what's the best way to get something to you? And they're either going to give you an email address or a cell phone number. You Google buy versus rent, right? Whatever. I mean, go find it on, Mortgage Coach or Trust Engine now, or Keeping Current Matters or whatever, just a Google search. It doesn't matter. The point is, you're going to send them something that allows you to follow up. You've now got a name and a phone number or an email address, and you've just added that person to your database. And Ken, I'm coaching clients that if they do that every single day, it just starts to become a part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you add one person to your database every day, that's 300 new people by next year. If it's 5, holy cow, like, just create a new discipline. Be that person that's having a conversation with people all the time. And now, like Jim Rohn used to tell us, the law of averages and time and consistency takes care of everything else. But you must feed your database. Most people, when I ask them who's in your database, it's closed loans. Got to be bigger than that. It's got to be bigger than that.
Totally. So go back to strategy, you're saying, and just kind of map it out, and what will make, what are the things that lead to success? What are the conversations I should be having? But basically work differently than you worked when things got, so insane. Because it really, you're right, we didn't have to sharpen skills. It was so funny when we started creating an academy of courses during 2020. We started building out this academy of things like helping people learn better and build the entire system. And during that time, people were like, I got no time to learn. And it's like, okay, that's not great. And then they ran out of money, or ran out of loans. And they're like, I don't need to learn. I just need to do. And what you're saying is, no, like, stop. Because part of the process is we need to learn. We need to, go back to strategy, go back to figuring out, being the best at what we're doing, not just in knowledge of product, but knowledge of how to make that successful, and start there. And have that.
Yeah, because Ken, it's not going to eliminate the peaks and valleys, but it's going to minimize them. If you ask me, one of the lessons that I've seen as an outcome, like when we were talking about 2008, now let's think about 2009 and 2010 as an example. I saw people coming out of that stronger, right? They diversified their lead sources. They worked on their conversion rates. Right now, if you all are listening to this or watching this, I guarantee you your conversion rates are lower. It just because of inventory issues and because of inspections that you're killing deals. I mean, it's just, I hear it every day that those are the kind of things that are happening. So you can't fix that, right? You can't fix that. You can influence the inventory issue. You can by having more and more conversations. But what you can control is the size of the funnel at the top, right? If you just pull it open wider, then that will take care of everything else. And when the market shifts, you're going to be in a much better place anyway. So yeah, man, that's where I would focus right now. I just think it's critically important. And you know, Ken, one thing I probably talked to you about at some point, this is me looking for my marker that is not permanent. Have you ever written on a whiteboard with a permanent marker? It's never good.
I have a calendar in my office that I just wrote on with a regular marker, and I'm like, well, I guess I can't change that. I'm committed.
So did I ever talk to you about art is not my strong suit, but about the three buckets?
No, I don't think so. And these buckets, by the way, for those of you listening on podcast, but you can't see it, this is all available by video in the coop so that you can like, you know, jump in there and see all of it.
So the first bucket is labeled control.
Yep.
The second bucket is labeled no control. And the third bucket is labeled influence. So in anything in life, if you just think, okay, can I control it? Yes or no? Interest rates? No. Do I have no control over it? Yep, I have no control over that. Can I influence it? Right. And so one of the things that we talk about in coaching a lot is like, let it go. I'm not going to sing the song because I can't sing, but hear it in your head, right? Let it go. Let it go. And right now, control what you can control. I think, Ken, what happens so often, and we know it happened during COVID, it happened to you. I mean, when you get into that moment, to all of us to some degree, you know, fight, flight, or freeze is real. And in a global pandemic, people didn't know what to do. So control what you can control. What at least we were being told, masks, hand sanitizer, 6 feet of distance, right? Do you remember all that in the beginning? It was like, not that it didn't go on for a long time, but initially it was like, okay, 6 feet, that's the magic number. Masks, that's going to fix it. Hand sanitizer. And, you know, now we've learned that the science doesn't support most of that, but it was a logical move, I guess, at the time. And so that starts jacking with everything in your mind. And so anyway, control what you can control. And then the one thing I want to make sure that we touch on, Ken, is that you asked me, you know, what are some of the lessons that we learned during that time, which is sort of the whole theme of the podcast that hopefully we can carry forward. Here's one of the things that I saw, man, and it was you because you are so smart, Ken, and you're so bright, and you have such a great intellect, and you're so quick. And what happened is, I feel like your heart, whatever the average heart size is, let's say it weighs a pound, suddenly you had this 10-pound heart that was driving you, that was creating this pulsation through your brain, right? So everything was being driven by your heart. But one of the good things that came from that, think about how we reached out to people. Hey, are you okay? Right? You did that a lot. I know you did, because you were leading with your heart. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the most valuable lessons that we can learn is that connection with people that became amplified. Like, are you okay? Is your family okay? What do you need? Mm-hmm. If that carries forward, and sadly it's not going to with everyone, but with many of us, I think that there's a memory of connection around that is very valuable. And if we can carry that forward, as you've done, you've figured out a way to connect with that part of Ken that really wanted to connect with people and make sure that they were okay, make sure you were okay. Dude, don't let go of that moving forward, because that to me is true leadership. And that's what people follow, is if I know that you care. I mentioned to you earlier, today's my birthday. So in the same way that has probably happened with you, my phone is blowing up with texts, videos. Rich Jefferson, who you just interviewed, if you've ever had a birthday greeting from him, you know what I got, right? He can actually sing. That guy can sing.
Oh, yeah.
And And there's two kinds of videos and messages you get. One is the clearly evergreen generic video that this person recorded one time,
Yeah.
right? It's all about you, but they
Mhm.
never mention my name.
Yep.
and, and then there's Rich, who's like, hey, coach, it's your day. Happy birthday to you. Happy. And he does this beautiful lounge lizard version of
Oh
happy
yeah.
birthday that is spectacular. Direct messages, Facebook posts. But that's the stuff, right? That's the affirmation that I care about you. One of the things that I hear a lot, and it makes my heart swell, is when I hear people say, you matter to me. You've had an impact in my life. You touch lives, and I appreciate you because of that. Like, I want to challenge you right now. If you're listening to this or you're watching this and you don't feel like you're leaving that kind of impact, step into the opportunity, because people want to hear from you. People want to be encouraged by you. People want to know that you care about them. Step back into that. Don't let this new world that we're re-entering without masks for the most part, don't let it obfuscate. Boy, there's another word. I got
Dude,
three
you
out
and these
today,
words,
right?
man.
Don't let it cover your heart connection with people. I think that's the most important thing we can carry forward, Ken, from that lesson.
The amount of times I've told the story of the building champions call that you guys put on when everybody was locked in their houses, nobody's getting out. You brought together the team. Masters coach wasn't even a thing anymore. Nobody's getting paid off this. And you brought together this team. And on that call was the one that was pivotal for me, which is why it's been a story I've told people, because we went around the room and everybody's like, I'm so busy making so much money. I'm so busy making so much money. And like every single person. And I was the last to go. And I can't remember if it was you that called on me, but I'm the last to go. And the entire time I'm thinking, I am the only one that hates this. And I'm the only one I lost so many live events. Every time I picked up the phone, I was losing a gig. But more importantly, I am an adventurer who needs my adventure. And I was told I can't go outside anymore. And I'm like, no, like I completely freaked out. And on that call, when I said, that was the first time I had announced to anybody that I was broken, like that's the word I used. And I was like, I'm broken. Like, I don't know. I can't see a way out of this. I can't see how it gets better. I'm freaking out. Nothing's good. It's all bad. And I don't know if you guys recorded that, but I'd love to see it. But that's when Bill Sohan said, KP, write this down. And he gave me his phone number. And I thought when he said, KP, write this down, I was going to be like, here's the tip to like fix everything. This is going to be great.
Right.
And all he gave me was numbers that were his cell phone. And that moment, I love that you brought this up, because that moment is connection for me of, I might be the one going through this thing that others don't seem to be going through.
That's right.
But I'm not the only one who cares about that. And that was like game changer, because on that call, I had so many relationships with so many of the people on that call. I barely knew Bill. We had met a couple times and, had conversations. But for him to do it was like, he's not doing it because we are so connected for so long. He's doing it because I'm part of a community and he cares about me. And
so cool.
And I think that's I definitely don't want that going away. And that's the hard part for me though is, I want your perspective as a coach on this. It's so hard to come to the moment where you say it out loud. And I think if more people are willing to humble themselves right now and say, I didn't do it right, or I'm not handling this well, or things are happening and I don't know how to solve those things.
Yeah.
That's like the first step to figuring out how to get through, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, if it's offered up like that, I think you have an opportunity to react.
Yeah.
And you did that day, and so did Bill Sohan, which is so beautiful. I would just make the observation that, barring a global pandemic, going through normal life, that's only going to happen a certain percentage of the time.
Yeah.
But if you, with your heart wide open, ask people, like, how are you? And when they give you the throwaway answer, which everybody does, living the dream, if I was any better, I'd need to have two of me, and gut check, by the way, like, stop that.
Right.
Like, stop that. But if you follow up to whatever their answer is and you say, no, but really, like, how are you? I want to know how you are. And or find your own way to do it with somebody that you haven't known very long. You know, maybe it's a more direct question, you know, where you just kind of get down to it. Right now in the mortgage industry, you got a lot of people in a lot of pain. If it's true that they're working twice as hard for half the money, and a lot of people are kind of in that, I don't really know what to do. I don't know what to do. You know, I can't afford coaching, or I don't know who to listen to. This person says this. And, you know, there's a lot of just make more calls. That's probably not the best thing for people to hear right now, because they don't really know what to do when they make those calls. I think we need to do a better job of asking questions, trying to pull back the layers a little bit so that we get to that point of understanding, okay, that person has some concerns. And is there some, with no agenda, like no agenda, if all you do is listen to that and try and find a way to help them to close the gaps between where they are and where they want to be, or just be an ear. Buddy, I do that all the time. I do it with my Calendly link. When somebody reaches out, I just had it happen with a former client who's dealing with some health issues right now. And oh man, God bless her. I mean, she asked me if I would be available to her daughter. She is sufficiently concerned about her viability right now with her health that she asked if I could be available to chat with her daughter. Of course. Well, how do you get to a point where somebody asks that question? It's because you've opened yourself up.
Yep.
So I didn't expect the emotion, but it's probably the most important thing that people can see is that if you do open yourself up, you're going to have some moments that are going to elicit tears. You're going to get involved in some conversations that you don't want to. But when you connect with people at a heart level and you demonstrate that you really care, suddenly you're living a life that's worth living. And only goodness comes from that. Like only goodness comes from that. You know, we all know the difference between scarcity and abundance. And the way that I roll through life at 68 today is with an abundant mindset. And that is, do I have time to talk to you and not get paid? Yeah, I do. And I'd love to. And so if you're listening to this right now and you're watching this and you want to have a conversation, here's how you reach me. 805-469-0341. Text me. Don't call me. That probably won't work out so well, but text me and just tell me, hey, I'd love to chat. I heard you with Ken. I'd love to have a conversation. Because if it's on your heart, I'd love to have a conversation with you.
Dude, I love that. That's Bill Hart, the human, as much as it is Bill Hart, the coach. That's just, I mean, I love your heart in that, and you've experienced it so much. You've experienced so many things, and I'm here to tell anybody listening that, I mean, you saw, I don't remember what I posted. I did something, and you just sent me a link to the Calendly, and you're like, we should probably talk. It's just checking in on me and see how I'm doing, and and I love that. Like that is who we should be. And I think that's the takeaway for me as well, having gone through that experience of being alone, knowing that people feel that way and that we can open ourselves up to that. And it's not about business. It's about just being who we need to be as humans.
Totally.
Yeah. Let's talk about Bill Hart, the human. You and I, when I first started coaching with you, you told me a story, and I don't remember who you were having a conversation with, but you got introduced as somebody's coach, and it was a friend. And you're like, but we're friends. You live this really interesting life because you tell people, I mean, you help people through their journey. You and my wife, as a therapist, has some similarities, and she doesn't get in a room and go, yeah, you think you're going through it.
Exactly.
You're vulnerable with the people that you coach. At least, you know, my experience has been that. But but you live this life where people paid you, and still your job is to help people based on a monetary transaction.
Yeah.
You have relationships. Do you have a dinner party with non-mortgage related people and just be like, oh, this feels so good? Or how does that feel in your world where you're like, I can turn off, I'm not getting paid. You're asking me that because you want my opinion outside of, what's that like?
It's the same all the time, bud. It's the same all the time. It just is. It's who I am. When Daniel Harkavy first recruited me in 2003, he said, "You'd be a great coach." One of the things that we talked about, because it took a few months for me to say yes, is that he helped me to realize I had always been a coach. I just wasn't getting paid for it. So, but here is the distinction from the coach's chair, which is interesting. So I have probably said this to you at some point, but when you cross that line, and it happens very quickly with me because of the way that I'm wired, from coach to friendship, when there's a friendship that is connected to coaching, the line that I used to use is, at the right moment, you don't need a paid friend. Like, you don't need a paid friend. I will be your friend for free. In this moment, I'm going to speak to you as a coach. You talk too much. Right? You didn't really put together a business plan that has any meat to it. And I don't want to do this anymore if you're not going to complete a business plan so that I can see what you see in terms of what you want to go after. And I got people lined up that would love to be coached, but they can't be right now because I'm spending time with you. So I'll hang out with you. I'll play golf with you. We can go to church and have a beer, probably not on the same day. Well, depending on the church, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, this isn't coaching. And so those are the kind of conversations that I have ended up having over the years, Ken, where I try and differentiate between my friendship with you is a given. And I'm thrilled to be your friend, whether you're paying me or not. But when we're coaching, I want to be your coach. The friendship is always there. But if I'm going to be your coach, I'm going to step into some tough areas and we're going to grow together. And you're going to thank me for that. And you're going to renew year after year because it's a good thing.
How do you fill up? Yeah, it does. How do you fill up? Because it's got to be draining. I mean, I know that, you give it your all. I mean, you have a podcast called the All In Podcast, right? I've never seen you go anything but all in on anything you do. How do you recover, or how do you re-energize? During times like this, I got to imagine a lot of calls are sad, or they're hopeless in some cases, and you're trying to help them find hope. How do you get that back for you?
Yeah, it's a really great point. It's reading, it's podcasts, it's I'm very careful what I pour into my brain. Like, sometimes Tony will turn something on, this is going to sound very familiar, on Netflix or Prime or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you know what? At this point, I don't need any more of this in my head. There's nothing good that's coming from this. And it's disappointing to my wife because she's easily entertained. I'm easily entertained as well, but she'd be fine with that. So when I call out this stuff, like, okay, I think that's the 47th F-bomb in this 30-minute episode, I'm good with it. I'm not a prude, but I just don't need to fill my head with that stuff or negativity or too much news. So I really try and be really cautious about that. And so the way I feed myself is what I tell clients to do. Like, be cautious about what you watch, be cautious about what you listen to, and be cautious about what you read. And on the other hand, be deliberate about what you watch, be deliberate about what you listen to, like this podcast, by the way. Make sure you subscribe so you get it every single time it comes out. And be deliberate about what you read. So that's how I do it. I call it pouring white paint in my bucket. You've probably heard me say that before, but that's the way I view it. It's like, all of us have a bucket of gray paint in various degrees, probably, I don't know, 49, 51 shades, something like that.
Oh, dude.
I don't know.
Speaking of which.
So whatever. Yeah, exactly. And I just need to keep pouring white paint in my bucket. If I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to be any kind of positive influence in the people that I hang out with, I've got to have that in my bucket, or it's just words.
You remember that Sunday school song? Because that's all that's going through my mind now. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. Be careful, and then be careful, little ears, what you hear.
Oh, for sure.
I sing that to myself when I want to remind myself that you do have to protect. Like I started the Dahmer documentary on Netflix,
Oh, dude, that was tough
literally a third
And I
of an
walked away
from it
episode in.
because
And
of
I'm like,
that.
no. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, this is
That's a lot
there's
of darkness,
zero
dude.
value in this for me, and there's nothing but negative potential. Not that I'm going to become a serial killer, but
Perfect
like I
Example.
gotta
No,
stay
but it's a
positive.
perfect example. Getting
Yeah.
inside that kind of darkness is like,
Yep.
it's like watching that Nashville shooting. I was watching some body cam footage and I realized I'm drawn to it, but I don't
Yeah.
need to watch that. I don't need to watch that.
I don't either. Like that, it's so present right now in our world. And I saw that yesterday. My Mindy, I was like, can you believe what happened? And she's like, I don't even, what are you talking about? Like she didn't know at all because she had worked a full day helping people and just never caught it.
Yeah.
And I saw it for a second and I'm like, what is my response that is the most healthy response possible? Right.
Yeah.
It's stop what I'm doing, pray for Nashville. That's it.
Totally.
I
Perfect.
literally have nothing
Likewise.
else to offer, right? And nothing
Likewise.
I do is going to make a difference outside of that. And so I'm going to going back to that control thing. I love those buckets. I can't control it. I may or may not have any influence over like people's mentality around it. So if it's a not control thing, then I've got to do what my therapist during the pandemic, I had a therapist for a few sessions. And he taught me radical acceptance. And he's like, if it's in the no control bucket, just learn to radically accept that.
That's
And
so good,
I
man.
can't accept it. And he's like, cool, then change it. I'm like, but I can't change it. And he's like, then accept, you only have a couple.
Let it go.
And so, yeah, accept it, but pray for the people in Nashville, pray for the families, and then move on and
Right
stop
on.
bathing in it because you bathe in it and
There's nothing good that comes from it. There's nothing good. And really, as severe and dramatic as that example is, it's the news. I mean, there's a reason that news broadcasts have that little good news segment in the last 3 minutes, which is always a little like, that's so sweet. I love that. But it's like the last 2 or 3 minutes, right? The other 97 is explosions and rapes and car chases and come on, man, come on.
Do you remember SGN? I haven't talked a lot about this. You remember SGN, Some Good News?
I don't.
So the guy from The Office,
which is probably the whole problem. That I've never heard of it. Yeah.
John Krasinski from The Office, during the lockdown, when everybody was stuck inside their house, he started doing a thing called Some Good News. And he found all the good stories, the heartwarming, the best stories of all. And he put them every week. He did an episode of Some Good News. And he would highlight these people like a nurse in Manhattan or, this community over here. And he would tell these stories. And for me, it got me through the week because I was staring at all the bad stuff and it was the good thing. Guess what happened to it? ABC.
Nothing, probably.
ABC got it and shut it down.
Really? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Because it was killing people were seeing what good news can do for your attitude.
Nice.
We're steering away from the bad news, which the other companies were trying to push, and they couldn't have that happen, so they shuttered it. And that shows the power of good news, the power of focusing on the things that you should be focusing on. So
completely,
I'm going to let us shut it down there because I want people to take this away and like go change the algorithms by viewing good things. And I'm going to leave one last thing on this. What happened down in, I think it was Kentucky, where they had the revival in Kentucky. It was like all these people started going to this college. And it was this amazing thing. And I viewed a bunch of that. I needed it that day. I needed hope.
Nice.
I needed, to see the love. Right. And I focused on it for about an hour. Like I was Googling other things that have been happening. And what I found is the algorithms changed. And Facebook was like, maybe you want to see people in prison in a worship service. And I saw a worship service in prison. And I'm like, yeah. And I watched it and I liked it. And it's like, well, how about this one? And how about this one? The algorithms will do what you're asking them to do if you focus on the things that are going to be good for you. So change the algorithm by changing what you're clicking on, and it will be like step one in doing
so good. That's money right there, man. I know that's true because I had a buddy show me once. He said, I keep having all these like bikini pictures showing up on Instagram. And I said, it's not happening in a vacuum. Right. So
I love it when non-tech people bring you issues and you're like, oh, I can tell you what happens here. Yeah. It's so key. And I appreciate you. I thank you. It's your freaking birthday. I'm not going to sing to you because neither one of us are good singers. But I love the wisdom that you constantly have. I love your perspective
buddy.
on things. For anybody, watching this now, track Bill Hart in Instagram, Facebook, everywhere he posts anything, because I've never seen you do anything that isn't awesome. And one of my favorite videos ever was your get off the lawn video when you started telling people, oh, you had your best year ever. Cool. So did everybody else. And it was a great video for people. If anybody watched that video and made changes based on it, they are better off today than they were back then.
Right on, man. It was the first time I pulled out Grumpy Old Coach, and it turns out it's very popular.
It was so awesome. It was so awesome. So follow Bill Hart everywhere he goes. Follow the
Thanks,
All In
buddy.
podcast. You're still doing the All In podcast, and it's awesome. So listen to the All In podcast, subscribe to that. Bill, thank you so much, and happy birthday.
My pleasure, brother. Always good hanging with you. Love you, brother.